How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another Marvel Snap video. So Havok hits the game today. For those of you who don't know, he is a 2-cost 0 power. After each turn, lose 1 max energy and this game's +4 power. So if you play this guy on turn 2, which I don't recommend, you're going to be stuck on 2 energy the entire game. Turn 3, 3 energy the entire game, 4, 4 energy, and so on. So the main use for this guy, I think, is going to be to play him on roughly turn 5, turn 4 on some decks. He releases into Series 4, so if you're going to get him, make sure you buy him with tokens and don't use your Spotlight caches for him. Save your Spotlight caches for Series 5 cards, unless there's another card in these caches that you want. Okay, so I realized while editing, I didn't go over the Spotlight cache for the week. I don't recommend buying Havok with your Spotlight caches, but for those of you wondering, the other 2 cards in the Spotlight cache are Nico Minoru and Legion. Legion has recently kind of fallen off. It's not like a top 5 drop or anything like that anymore, but still a very useful card. But the main card here is Nico. If you don't have her and you want to play, bounceless, Thanos-less, she is fantastic, especially right now with the Blob Thanos meta going on. Nico is probably a really good buy. Unfortunately, it's with a Series 4 card, so I don't know if it's 100% worth it, especially with Legion and Havok not being great. But if you're looking for Nico, this is a Spotlight cache to go for. I don't think I would, but anyways, here it is. Back to the video. My initial thoughts: I don't think he's going to be very good. However, with this ability, if someone finds a way to abuse the ability, let's say playing him on turn 2 and then playing Viper on 3, and if that becomes reliable, if there's a way to abuse the ability, he can be very good. But if I had to bet on it, I don't think he's going to be at that level. I think he's going to be 2 stars, 3 star maybe. But I have 3 decks to try him in on day 1. The first one I'm actually really excited for. Let's go over them now. Havok Junk with Ravonna Renslayer. As you guys know, with a lot of these day 1 decks, I like to play cards that you don't normally get to play, and I don't think I've gotten a lot of Ravonna, and so Havok's kind of the perfect card to give her a shot. I'm a little all in on the Junk side of things here, where you have Hood, Viper, Green Goblin, Hobgoblin. You have Ravonna to make these cards cheaper. I'm playing Debris in this deck, coupled with Man-Thing. With the nerf to Luke Cage, Man-Thing I think is pretty good now, especially if you can send rocks over with Debris. And then of course you have Sentry and Annihilus in that Junk package. The idea of this deck, if you haven't played Junk before, of course, is to get as much crap on your opponent's side. Be it you play Hood on turn 1, Viper on turn 2 to send that Hood over, or with Havok, the idea is to play Havok on turn 2 and then play Viper to send that Havok over on turn 3. Now, if you go that route and you send that Havok over, your opponent is going to be stuck on 3 energy for the rest of the turn, and you're going to be able to play up until 5 energy. And so you're going to want some ways to deal with that Havok, because it's just going to keep getting bigger. And so you have Shadow King and Shang-Chi to deal with that Havok if you need to. The rest of the deck is just Junk. If you don't get that Havok route, you have Debris to get some rocks out. You have Man-Thing to give things negative power. Sentry, of course, one of the strongest cards to pair with Annihilus. Play Sentry, you can send that negative 10 power over. And then this is playing the Goblin package, mainly because it's coupled with Ravonna. You can play them cheaper on turn 4, and I guess you can't play Green Goblin on turn 2, but you can play Hobgoblin on turn 4, Annihilus on 5, and just a really good, solid Junk deck. A little all in on it. There's other versions of Junk where you're not so all in, where you're playing Debris. But for day 1, I really wanted to give this one a shot. The next deck that I think Havok is going to fit into, this deck is actually by Safety Blade. You guys know I get a lot of my decks from him. I like the brews that he comes up with for day 1. They're really creative, and they're a really good starting shell to start out with and build upon. So Mr. Negative, obviously he fits in really well. Mr. Negative swaps the cost and the power of the cards in your deck. So when you draw him, when you draw Havok, he will be a 0/2. If you can play Havok on turn, say 5 for 0, he's going to be a 0 cost 10 power by the time you're done. Even if you just play him on turn 6, a 0 cost 6 power is pretty good. And then of course you're getting all of the other cards like Iron Man, Arnim Zola, all of these cards to cost 0. and it just plays like a regular Mr. Negative deck. You have Ravana in here and Zabu, because if you can play either of them on turn 2, you can play Mr. Negative on turn 3. Obviously, the main goal here is to get Mr. Negative out as soon as possible, so you can start drawing those cheaper cards. I'm really excited for this deck. I'm really excited to try Mr. Negative out once again. It's been a while since I've tried him, and I think Havok slots in pretty well into that deck. Lastly, the last deck I have for you guys is just a Bast Bounce. Again, by Safety Blade. I really tried to hunt for some decks from other creators, and Safety Blade's decks I was just a big fan of. The idea here, obviously it's a bounce shell. You can buff Werewolf as big as possible, buff Bishop as big as possible. You want to bounce your 1-drops back to your hand with Falcon and Beast, play them, bounce around Werewolf. Your normal bounce stuff, you've seen it, you played it before, but the idea with this one and Havok is to play Bast, get Havok to 3 power. You can play Havok probably on turn 4. He'll be a 2/3. At the end of turn 4, he will be a 2/7. Then you can bounce him back to your hand on turn 5 with Beast. And then on the last turn, he'll effectively be a 1-cost 11 power. So that's kind of the idea with playing Havok in this deck. Again, your main win condition is just going to be that Werewolf, getting Werewolf as big as possible, buffing Angela as big as possible, Bishop as well, and just playing that regular bounce shell. But you do have that option of playing the Havok and getting a very cheap 11 power on the last turn. It's worth noting, if you play Havok on turn 4, when you bounce him, and then your last turn, you will have 5 energy. So be wary of that. It will mean that you probably get to play 1 less card on your last turn, but I think for a 1-cost 11 power, that is actually pretty good and worth the trade-off. So worth trying. Also worth noting, if people are playing Havok into Viper, Beast is going to be fantastic, because if they play the Havok on turn 2 and send it over on turn 3, you can play Beast on turn 4. You'll be stuck at 3 energy. You can bounce the Havok to your hand, gain some energy, and continue playing your deck, and you're not quite just stuck at 3 energy for the rest of the game. So it's a good counter to that play line, where I think a lot of people are going to be playing Havok into Viper. I know I am. So Beast, great card to throw in right now. Bounce, obviously one of the top decks in the meta at the moment. So if you guys aren't subscribed to my channel, I do day 1 deck videos for every new card coming out, so consider subscribing. I also do bundle breakdowns. There's some big bundle news, big changes. There might revert or add some, I can't go over it because I don't know what I'm allowed to talk about, but just stay tuned for the next bundle video for next week. I'll talk about the changes to the Sugar Spice and Everything Nice bundle and how that's all panning out. So lots of crazy bundle stuff. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on that. And as usual, if you love all things Marvel Snap, make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell. I'll see you in the next one.